Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to take this tutorial to the next level, maybe 2 levels up from where it is right now. So by that I mean we are introducing RxSwift in the project, which will really make it reactive and we can get rid of so much of code right now which was already being written. So let's see how we can achieve it. So introducing RxSwift as a first step, let me just get rid of this extension. Let me move it to a folder. Let's call it string plus extensions. And I'll just grab this piece of code and move it to the extension file and then introduce the required UIKit reference. That being done, next step is to include RxSwift. Even before that, let me just tell you what we will get rid of by introducing this. First of all, whatever data source, UITableView data source we have referenced, and the corresponding references to number of rows in section, cell for row, at index, these all will go away once we have RxSwift included. So as a first step to include RxSwift, let's go to the documentation. Let's see how to use it. So I'll be using Cocoapods for that. So if you don't know how to use Cocoapod, then you might just have to go to the Cocoapods website and see how to install it. So you can just run this command on your terminal and get that installed. So it might just require a gem command or something for that to be done. So I already have Cocoapod installed in my machine. So all I have to do is to init it in my specific folder. So let me just go to the project folder. And then I only need to do pod init, which you can see has created a pod file. So to work with the pod file, I'm using something called as the Cocoapod Mac application, which I have installed, which you can also install and use it. So if you want to make any edit to or even run up Cocoapod file, you can use this utility tool available. So by just dragging and dropping it, you can open it in this tool. So if you want to include Cocoapod files, for my case, I'll be including it under this pods for table view MVVM. Let me just go back to their documentation, and it says you need to include RxSwift, and RxCocoa is something which will enable you to bind your UIKit controls using RxSwift. So I need both of them. Go back, include that, and once that is done, I just need to install it. So it's already, because I had all previously used it in my machine, directly installed it from the cache. Otherwise it might take a little while for you to get that installed. So once that is done, go back to your project folder. You can see that along with the project file, it would have created a workspace. So instead of, if you want to use the Cocoapod libraries, you have to open this workspace instead of the project file. So let's close the earlier opened project, go back to workspace and open it, and you can see that the pods also included right now along with the project. So the framework is included, RxSwift is already included along with it. I have the RxCocoa and RxSwift included. So let's just do a clean build so that the right references are picked up. Okay, so that's successful right now. So I have included Cocopod in my project. Now I can start getting rid of some of the delegates which we have already defined, and also modify our items collection in a way that we can bind our table view and get that data populated in the table view. So for that, let me go back to my view model first, jump to my view model, and in the items I'm going to make a change right now. Before that, let me include RxSwift. I don't need RxCocoa here because all the UI kit elements are available in ViewController. That's where I'll be making all those RxCocoa related changes. So if I go back to my view model, I have the items collection. So I will include, instead of being a regular array, I'm going to introduce something called as a variable, which is part of RxSwift. So variable is nothing but, if I can reference somewhere, it represents an observable state. That means simply it means that whenever a value is changed in that array, you can subscribe to that change somewhere else so that you get notifications of those changes. So I'm just giving a brief about it right now, but more explanation I can give you regarding different objects available in RxSwift in a later tutorial. So let's just stick with this right now. You have a variable available, you include that, and you also need to instantiate it. So this is how you do it. I have this variable right now, and the array which was previously available as a regular array is now a variable array. So that is also instantiated. This will trigger many changes in our existing implementation. So let's just start modifying those. I have something here where I am appending all the items, where I right now will have to expose that variable array through something called as a value. So now I am adding all the elements through the variable array through something called as a variable. That's fixed. So everywhere we'll have to make the change. I have these items here. Still some places. Looks like in the ViewController, in the ViewModel, we have some more places. It has to be value.remove, value.index. Now I think we have resolved everything on the ViewModel side. Let's just start fixing on the ViewController side. So here also, instead of accessing it through items, you have to introduce the value. Let's build it once more and see. I think we have resolved it in almost all places, all the places. So let's run it and see whether existing features are working. I have not yet introduced the RxSwift feature yet, but it's just using the RxSwift variable to build the existing features. If that works, let's start introducing RxSwift features in this. So everything is loading correctly. Even we have, let's see if things are working. It's working as is, as per the last tutorial, so nothing is broken. So let's see if we add something. That's also working right now. So let's start building this using RxSwift. The first thing that we need to do is to bind the table view using the ViewModel. So let's go back to our ViewController. This is where the ViewModel is getting generated. Here, let's introduce Rx feature, the first Rx feature. This is coming as part of RxCocoa because it is binding to table view. So this is a code snippet I have already saved, which I regularly use. So let me just introduce first thing first. ViewModel.items, which we created as a variable right now. It's created as an observable, so that's my observable collection, which is binding to my table view. So table view we already defined as table view items, call that table view items, and then through Rx we are binding that items collection of the table view to individual cells. So we have the individual cell identifier being created already. Let's introduce that here, identifier, and it needs to point to my custom table view cell, which is table view to do item table view cell. That's also done right now. So that binding is already done, and we need to also take care of something called as dispose bag, which is nothing but a garbage collection feature included along with RxSwift, which will let you easily handle memory management of all the Rx elements. So all that we need to do is to add it in a bag called dispose bag, instantiate that, guess that would be enough. So dispose bag is added now. So our observable binding is done. So now the next step is to use the existing configure of the cell. Let's go back to the cell. Okay, we have the cell. So we already have a configure function here where we are passing the view model, where it binds with the all the fields of the table view cell. So similarly here we can call still dispose bag is complaining because we did not include RxSwift here. We need RxSwift as well as RxCocoa. So let's see whether dispose bag is now it's available. So without those imports, even this will not work. So that's sorted now. Let's configure our cell. So within this construct, within this block, let's call the configure function and pass the item, which is our view model. So the index, the item, and the cell are the params to this closure. So we'll use the items, which is our view model. So it's still pointing it. So previously add disposable to was used, but now with the latest RxSwift they have introduced something called as dispose by, which pretty much does the same thing. Let's include that. dispose by. So all set. We have done the data binding right now. So all this line of code will handle, let's see what all. So I can get rid of this, which is the number of rows in section, that's gotten rid of. Also cell configuration, this boilerplate code can also be removed. So that in turns we can wholly remove this UITableView data source. Let's run and see what happens now. Okay, it crashes with fatal error being optional table view to UITableView, failure converting from optional table view to UITableView source. So that means we don't need to refer or associate the data source property in the outlet, so we can remove that. So data source is removed, only delegate is left. So let's come back and run. So you see that it's loading the table view using RxSwift right now. Pretty simple, isn't it? You just are making it happen with just one line of code, just binding the items with the cell, just passing the configure cell. Simple. Now there are some interesting things which we can do and get rid of. Many of the delegate calls which we have made from the view model to rebind the table view. So let's look at it one by one. Let's start with already existing feature of add. Still this is using crashes there. It's because it's referencing a couple of things. Let's get rid of that. So first thing, it has started using RxSwift features already, so we need to start removing many of the callbacks. The first thing that we will get rid of is not insert to do item, because that is something which is going from the view right now. So let's look at all the callbacks. So if you look at it in the view model, whenever an insert is happening, let's go insert section. Where are you? Insert. Okay, on add to do item, it's receiving and adding that item, appending it to the array, and we are sending a notification back to the ViewController. So what are we getting rid of? First thing, we don't need this. We don't need to notify the table view of the change, because the data binding that we did in the last step will take care of it. So let's get rid of that and go back to our insert to do item. Now insert this piece of code we don't need anymore. That means we can remove that insert call from the protocol. Let's see whether this works now. So what are we going to see right now? We are triggering an add call from the ViewController, and that in turn adds the item to the items array, and that's it. We should see that change happening in the view model. So let's get rid of this as well. In the ViewController, in the table view, we should see that refresh happening. Let's see that now, whether it works. See the magic? It's already working. So we don't need the response callbacks. So let's start getting rid of one by one all the delegates we added through to do view. We have the remove to do item, update to do item, reload items. Let's get rid of all those and this delegate as well. And do the same here. Can maybe remove this whole extension part. That's it. Go back to our view model where all those calls are happening. So we have the weak reference. Get rid of that. We don't need this anymore. That's gone. So you can start seeing that the code is getting leaner and nicer because many of the features are taken care by RxSwift. So we have removed all of the references. There's something more in the ViewController. Okay, so we don't need to pass this anymore. So ViewModel does not require a reference of the view to delegate it back. So we removed everything now. Let's see whether things are working or not. Let's run. The first thing, add was anyway working. It's working. Next thing, let's see a remove. That too works. Let's see whether done works. That works. Pretty good, isn't it? Everything is working with the new data binding. So this is the brief introduction of how to use table view using RxSwift binding. So hope you enjoyed this episode. See you soon with some more features of RxSwift integration. Thank you.